In 2002, a forensic pathologist named Bennett Omalu performed an autopsy on a former NFL player named Mike Webster. Webster had been one of the greatest players in NFL history, 4 Super Bowl wins, a Hall of Fame career. By the end of his life, he was living in his truck. He was tasing himself to sleep because it was the only way he could lose consciousness. He died at 50 years old. What Omalu found in Webster's brain had never been documented in a former NFL player before. Extensive deposits of an abnormal protein called tau, the same protein found in the brains of dementia patients, distributed throughout the brain in a pattern consistent with repeated traumatic impact. He named the condition chronic traumatic encephalopathy, CTE. He published his findings in a peer-reviewed journal in 2005. The NFL's response was not to investigate further. It was to attempt to have the paper retracted. So, what is CTE and why does it matter so much? Chronic traumatic encephalopathy is a progressive neurodegenerative disease caused by repeated blows to the head. And here's what most people don't realize. It doesn't require concussions. It's caused by the accumulation of subconcussive impacts, hits that don't produce immediate symptoms but cause microscopic damage to brain tissue over time. An NFL player experiences an estimated 1,000 subconcussive impacts per season. The symptoms include memory loss, depression, paranoia, impulsive behavior, aggression, and dementia. And they typically emerge years or even decades after the impacts that cause them. CTE can only be diagnosed after death. There is no living diagnostic test. And if you want to understand the scale of what we're talking about, a 2017 study published in the Journal of the American Medical Association examined the brains of 111 former NFL players donated for research. 110 of the 111 brains showed evidence of CTE, that is 99%. The NFL called the study flawed. Now here's the part that tells you this wasn't an accident or an oversight. In 1994, 8 years before Omalu examined Mike Webster's brain, the NFL formed a committee specifically to study the relationship between football and head injuries. They called it the Mild Traumatic Brain Injury Committee. And if you're asking yourself who they put in charge of it, the chairman was a rheumatologist, a specialist in joints and autoimmune diseases, with no background in neurology or brain trauma whatsoever. Between 1994 and 2005, that committee published 13 papers. Their conclusions were consistent across all of them. No evidence that playing football caused long-term neurological damage. Players who suffered concussions could safely return to play in the same game. Independent neurologists disputed these findings publicly and repeatedly. And what you probably don't know is that those committee papers were later found to contain significant methodological errors. One paper excluded data from retired players, the population most relevant to long-term outcome research, without any explanation. A subsequent analysis found the committee's dataset had omitted 100 concussion cases from its research. The omission made the data appear safer than it was. So, what happened when Omalu published his findings in 2005? The NFL's committee wrote a letter to the journal demanding the paper be retracted. They argued Omalu had misdiagnosed CTE and that his findings weren't credible. The journal declined. The Omalu then examined the brains of 2 more former NFL players, Terry Long and Andre Waters. Both showed evidence of CTE. Both had died by suicide. The committee continued to dispute his findings. In 2007, the NFL held a summit on concussions. Independent neurologists presented evidence linking football to long-term brain damage. The committee's representatives disputed the evidence at the summit. Omalu was not invited. Then in 2009, the NFL commissioned its own study. And what you need to know about what they found is this. Former NFL players were 19 times more likely to develop Alzheimer's disease or similar memory-related diseases than the general population. The NFL's Public Affairs Department told reporters the study was preliminary and inconclusive. In October 2009, the House Judiciary Committee held a hearing on NFL concussion policy. And a congresswoman named Linda Sanchez said something that cut straight to the heart of it. She compared the NFL's position directly to the tobacco industry's decades-long denial of the link between smoking and cancer. The NFL's Commissioner Roger Goodell testified that he could not say whether football caused long-term brain damage. In 2013, the NFL settled a class action lawsuit brought by more than 4,500 former players and their families. The settlement was estimated at approximately $1 billion. As part of it, the NFL admitted no liability. It did not admit that football caused CTE. In 2016, a senior NFL official publicly acknowledged for the first time a link between football and CTE. It had been 11 years since Omalu published his original paper. It had been 22 years since the NFL formed its concussion committee. As of today, CTE has been confirmed posthumously in the brains of more than 300 former NFL players. There is still no living diagnostic test. There is still no treatment. The NFL generated $18 billion in revenue in 2023. The NFL has donated approximately $100 million to brain injury research, a figure that critics note represents less than 1 week of league revenue. Bennett Omalu, the pathologist who first identified CTE in an NFL player, became an American citizen in 2015. At his citizenship ceremony, he said, "Only in America could this happen." He didn't clarify whether he meant the discovery or the response to it. Mike Webster died in 2002 living in his truck, tasing himself to sleep. He was not an anomaly. Junior Seale, Dave Duerson, Ray Easterling, Andre Waters, all former NFL players, all died by suicide, all found to have CTE posthumously. The NFL formed a committee to study brain injuries in 1994. For 11 years, that committee published research concluding football was safe. The research was wrong. The committee knew it was contested. They published it anyway. The game is still played, the hits still happen, the tau protein still accumulates. And every Sunday, 100 million people watch.